opportunity for driving business.
We'll be back from the break. You're still watching Smart Men's Business in Manchester region this morning with Masi Katsime here. And well, at this very time, we're heading straight to take a look at what's happening in terms of you being inspired as a young entrepreneur and well, a vibrant one. Positivity, positive mindset is quite very key when it comes to success of any business. But before we get into that discussion, don't forget the Markets on the Zabo platform, which will be opening just a few minutes from now. As I speak, just about 12 minutes left for the markets to open. Now, for you to be a part of this, simply dial *292# and you'll be available with quite lots of options where you'll be able to buy government bonds or securities for just as little as 15,000 you get in shillings. Now, this is going to be effective Monday up to Friday, 8:15 a.m. till 3:15 p.m. And you'll be able to make yourself quite some good money. Apart from Saturday and Sunday, where you won't be able to access these markets because this week there is no public holiday. So it's full Monday up to Friday. And I believe life is not going to be the same. And you'll be having quite a very positive testimony when it comes to trading government bonds and securities. You don't need any paperwork, only your mobile phone. Zabo simply says, my money, my future. And Altix East Africa says, do something new. Well, right about now, let's get into our business tips and quotes as we proceed. Well, that's it regarding our business tips and quotes. Of course, one of the key aspects for you to really get inspired. You know, Masi, it's interesting. Do you remember there is a guy called Napoleon Hill? You've heard about him? What do you know about him? Well, Napoleon Hill wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich. No, I think Think and Grow Rich. Then there was also The Secret. Now, most of these books were written down by him, and they inspired quite lots of people. I know people started up, they're saying, I read this book and it's quite very inspirational. Actually, there are people that made a series about the secret, and everything. But, surprisingly, most of these books had quite a deep-rooted aspect in when it comes to, mindset building. And at some point, people perceived that they had a spiritual root at which they could bring. Now, Napoleon Hill could say that he could imagine himself in a room, and in this room, there are likes of Abraham Lincoln, there are likes of John D. Rockefeller, one of the richest men to ever exist on the continent. And now he said that he could imagine that these people could talk to him and give him advice business-wise. And he claims in his book that he started to see these people in reality. Yeah, he could see Abraham Lincoln tell him he became wealthy. he has written quite lots of quotes. But surprisingly, there is a sad story that people don't really know. He was one of the people that faced bankruptcy charges like never before. Wow. There's no project he ever started that succeeded. And he was writing all these quotes and all these things. Okay, why I'm saying this, whenever I see these quotes and these business tips and quotes, they bring me back to this perspective of if you're that person that is writing this quote, it's very important that you live your life. Actually, you live what you give out there, because you cannot give what you don't have. And what I mean in this perspective is the substance that you speak out, because when you speak something and you're not sure whether it really works out for you, well, you are speaking from a place of deception and you're deceiving yourself.
So that means your life should reflect what
your life actually, in most cases, most of these people, I perceive most of them, when they're writing these tips and quotes, it's out of an experience and they decided to write down. But however, there are also people that can sit down and write a quote, but inspired by what they think should be. Probably if I think that, okay, let me just give a lay example. If I tell you that there is no substitute for hard work, you have to work hard for you to get there. But have I experienced it? But I'm speaking it because it sounds right to say so, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm quoting it. But it's another aspect if I experience it. What if there is somebody who's not working hard and they seem successful? Will that quote make sense for them?
No,
so
it wouldn't.
That's the angle in which I'm trying to bring in this aspect. I zeroed it down to Napoleon Hill, and he went bankrupt. He started up a school telling people that that is going to be employing the youth and they're going to be paid a salary. Little did they know that it was actually it was his failed. Actually, even that project itself failed. It was just a school, and they were just looking for cheap labor. And these people were being deceived that they're being trained and all these things. I mean, he was a scammer in some sort of a sense. That is Napoleon Hill. So, well, I don't know. So that's why it's very important as a business person. If you're getting inspired, if you say that I want to get inspired and I want to read out some literature by some of these greats, the favorite ones, make sure that the quotes that you read, the business quotes that inspire you, take time to study. By the way, I can realize if you study someone's life pattern, it's much more than just reading his quotes. Because once you adapt the spirit of his life pattern, you will know how he did business. For example, if you read something about John D. Rockefeller, if you read something about J.P. Morgan, if you read something about Henry Ford, of course, these are the people that some of the founding fathers when it came to building America. But of course, they also play a very important role in terms of entrepreneurship, even away from America, but even coming down to Uganda. If you take time and you read their literature, the books written by them, by the time you're done with that book, you will be able to tell how exactly this guy used to think. And that should be enough motivation to drive you, other than just reading somebody's quote. But when their life doesn't correlate with the quote that they wrote.
There is a lady, actually, she was a writer and a poet. She has very many Sylvia Plato. And of course, she had very many poems and of course quotes. And I read some of her quotes, and I went. There is this thing that always inspires you to go and read through someone's biography and know, oh, okay, this is quite something. So I went, and of course, most of the poems she used to write were, inspired by her death. I do not know.
Her death?
Yes, future death.
Her future death. So
I was disturbed, I must say. I was really disturbed. I'm like, this is what we are reading.
So wait, she was writing poems inspired by her future death?
Yes. And in short, she was actually a sad person in real life.
She was sad?
Yes.
Okay, that is sad indeed.
That is sad indeed. Of course, you have to, as I was read out these quotes, you have to read them and pick what you think is important for you.
Yeah.
And live your life.
And I believe
it's quite interesting. I had a friend, and he saw a person selling books. these inspirational books, how to get rich, 1,000 ways to get money.
1,000 ways to get money.
Then he asked this young man, have you read any of these books? So the man was like, you know, I haven't taken time. I mean, I do not know how to read. And the man was like, had you taken time to read these books? I don't think you would be here selling them.
Okay, if you had taken time to read these books, you wouldn't. Why?
I mean, why would you sell? Why would you sell to a person ways to get rich? Yet you yourself,
you're not rich.
You're not rich. What's the logic?
Results and substance is what we are talking about here.
So really, you have to get inspired, you know, and find ways. You have to read and, of course, live your life, you know. In life, it doesn't stop at reading. You practice what you read.
Very true. Okay, now, this time as we get into our next update, this time around, it being a budget week, a budget month at the same time, recently when the president was addressing, that is on the State of the Nations last week, when he was giving accountability for the year 2022. Of course, he gave us an insight regarding trade, you know, regarding trade, how the country has been performing, and so many other related aspects. And later on, I remember him discussing about the aspect of giving a favorable climate to those that are coming into trade money, not tossing them here and there. Well, so many of that related topics, it's what we are going to be looking up to in our update. So now let's first of all revisit this speech.
Government resisted price controls and subsidies when prices went up sharply. You know, there are always those pressures for populist, cheap actions which are very dangerous to the stability of the economy. This is because these kinds of measures are not sustainable, and they instead introduce distortions in the economy. They bring about the old habits of smuggling, magendo, and can result in shortages of goods in the market. This happens when some rich business people hide consumer goods to cause artificial shortages in order to benefit from higher prices. Some countries give subsidies or control prices of some essential commodities such as fuel, bread, wheat, etc. We do not believe in subsidizing consumption, such as subsidizing petrol for people to drive to nightclubs. I cannot subsidize fuel so that people drive more to the nightclubs. If they want to go to the nightclubs, they go there at their own cost, the cost of their pockets. International trade. Export revenue of goods and services was $6 billion for the calendar year ending 2022, of which export of goods merchandise was worth $4.3 billion. For the 12 months to February 2023, we have exported 5.7 million bags, each of 50 kilograms of coffee, worth US dollars 858.7 million. The fish we exported was $166 million. Beans, $132 million. Sugar, $146 million. Maize, $131 million. And industrial products worth US dollars $348.9 million. These were exported mainly to the regional markets. All this has been possible because of the NRM's efforts to grow and diversify the economy. Export of services was worth US dollars 1,776 million or $1.8 billion. Regional integration efforts and promoting intra-African trade are taking root. Uganda now exports more to Africa than to the rest of the world, with 86% of our exports going to Africa in the 12 months to February 2023 and 57% to the East African countries. What we need to intensify as Africa is to build regional infrastructure to improve connectivity within the region and reduce trade transaction costs. This way, we shall be able to pull our populations out of poverty much faster because we shall attract more investments. On foreign direct investment, Uganda's investment climate remained competitive in the region and globally. Because of this, investors willing to bring their money and invest here have increased. This is partly due to the stable and sound economic policies and the prevailing peace and security in the country. Foreign direct investment, FDI, inflows to Uganda continued to recover and reached $949 million during the first 6 months of this financial year, 2022-2023.
Well, of course, that's the president during the State of the Nation's address that was last week on Wednesday, addressing on the matters in regarding to trade. But of course, according to the observation, seems like we've imported more to Africa than the rest of the world. Yes, of course, as you grow the domestic, the intra-trade within, because remember, the shocks, sometimes when we over-rely on foreign trade, let me say that, trade from away across borders, crossing the borders of Africa, in case we experience a chain, a disruption, it could be a supply chain, a trade disruption that is a global, from the global perspective, chances are high that we shall be affected.
Yes, definitely.
Why am I saying this? I remember in the 2008 meltdown, the global crisis that hit most of Western Europe and America at the same time. But there are countries which weren't affected by that. I remember, I think one of the countries that weren't affected was Switzerland. They had the Swiss francs wasn't affected. But why? Because the strength of the Swiss francs, at some point, it relies on the domestic aspects. The transactions are from within. So that gave it a certain form of stability that nothing could actually overcome it, when it comes to that. So as you can see, still the aspect of trade, industry and trade within East Africa, within Africa, well, I think it's the right aspect to go. We just need to set our priorities right. I think. So you have something to say on that?
Yes, of course, definitely. It's a good idea when you come to think of it. Of course, it starts within Uganda, then East Africa, then Africa as well. If, like you say, now in case there is a global
chain disruption,
disruption, how are we going to survive? If we could build this regionally, we could survive, or Africa, or East Africa, on our own, without depending on other countries or foreign countries, of course. And of course, it's about, have to think about infrastructure if we are to grow. We are to grow, actually. Of course, starting from Uganda itself, then East Africa as a united front. We can fight really this, and of course, and attract investment. That is the only way. That's the only way we are going to attract investment, by building ourselves first. Once you are disorganized as a country or as a region, there is no way.
What is that you have that is attracting other people come and
that is why
check you out.
We read about the United Arab Emirates and the Indian tycoons planning to invest 900 billion in Uganda. That is quite huge. That means we have potential as Ugandans, potential as Ugandans who we can't see. So these people come in to invest because they see potential, and definitely they know they'll get something out of it.
Definitely, they'll rip out in the longest run as possible. Well, it's 26 minutes past 8. You're still watching Smart Men's Business. Well, right about now, before we get into the break, don't forget the markets on the Zabo platform, which have already opened as I speak right now, 8:15 a.m. and they're going to be running up to 3:15 p.m. today. So for you to be a part of this, what do you need to do? Star 292 hash is simply the USSD code for you, and you'll be available with these options where you'll be able to buy government bonds and securities for things. Now, Monday up to Friday, 8:15 a.m. till 3:15 p.m., except on the weekends and the public holidays. But for this week, there is no public holiday, so it's going to be running up to Friday, apart from the weekend, that is Saturday and Sunday, when the markets will be closed. Now, Zabo made this a reality. There is no excuses why you shouldn't own government bonds or securities. Well, and all you need is your mobile phone. There is no paperwork involved. You could be saying, you know, I need some paperwork. Well, it's not needed this time around. Simply get your mobile phone, and no excuse that I don't have a smartphone, I have a button phone. Even with a button phone, you can still perform. Zabo simply says, my money, my future, and all East Africa just says do something new. Now let's get into the break. Of course, when we return, we shall be taking a look at what's happening that's in the world of sports, business, and entertainment. Good morning.